this young lady and her child and her husband. Her husband wasn't there. The young lady was. This is Half Moon Bay, and this happened in March 2005. The lady, I'll call her Andrea, what her last name is. She, I went to interview her. She has a company in her own business in Seashell called Hot Tamales, which I always thought was an Italian restaurant or something. Turned out to be an adult store for women. So I went to interview her there, and then all the time, I imagine Randy, I'm sure glad Randy never saw me go into this place. It's the only thing I was thinking. But on the night of March 8, 2005, she was driving home to Half Moon Bay along the main highway there with her little girl in the back seat. But she saw this thing cross the highway in front of her car, right to left. She said it was huge, and it crossed the highway in about 3 steps. And the thing is, it almost seemed to drop out of sight, like it zipped out of sight. She couldn't figure it out. Crossed the road and then gone, like in a flash. Not a flash of light, like it just gone. Couldn't explain it. So she called John Green, who called me. I was up there within a couple of days having a look at it. Took the ferry ride all the way up there. And I found out why it seemed to disappear. On the other side of the road, it's like a 10-foot drop into blackberry bushes and stuff. And only a half a kilometer from there is the Pacific Ocean. And just thick trees between the two. So that's why this thing didn't even slow down. It just hit across the road, gone. She had always heard stories of the Sasquatch. She had always believed in the creature, but she never ever thought she'd ever see one. And she said, when you see something like this, it's like seeing, for someone to come up and question the existence of the Sasquatch to her, she said, it's like someone trying to argue the existence of gorillas or rhinos. You've seen one, they haven't, but you know what it is. But they haven't seen one. She said, it's incredible. She couldn't understand how something so big, so massive could still be basically undiscovered, unconfirmed in British Columbia, Canada. And this spot, she's pointing to where it came out. Now, when I got there a couple of days later, you could still see the trail through the grass where it had come out across the line. There were no clear, distinct footprints in this spot, but you could see where something, you could see the trail there, where what she's pointing at, where something or someone had come out of the trees and crossed the road. And that's close. You see that trail there, where it came through the grass? That's where it came out, crossed the road, and there's the other side of the road. There's the drop off, and it's like a 10-foot drop there. That's why it seemed to disappear in a flash. It just dropped down into that mess, and it disappeared. She never saw it again. She never knew, she didn't think the little girl had seen anything, because the little girl didn't say anything. Well, a few years later, when me and a couple of colleagues of mine were being considered to host a show here in Western Canada, which was basically going to be our version of Finding Bigfoot, a show Finding Bigfoot. Well, it never came on the ground. I got off the ground because we refused to do things like Howl at the Moon and things like that in the dark. We went there to do a pilot, and we talked to her again, but her daughter now is a 13-year-old teenager. And a few years after this happened, all her mother remembers that she said, "Mom, what was that big monkey we saw a few years ago?" And that was the first time she said it. She didn't realize the little girl had seen it. And she called it the big monkey. Now this young lady, Silver Saget Road, February 8, 2011. She and her fiance bought a house there. They're renovating, they're redoing the inside. They decided to take a break. It was one of those nice February days like we just had, where the rest of Canada is envious of us. They're freezing in 5 feet of snow, and we got beautiful spring-like conditions, and sure enough, they went out for a drive. And on the way back, coming back 5 Silver Saget Road, 5 kilometers up, she sees this thing moving off the roadside into the trees on the right-hand side. Her fiance who was driving didn't see it at that point. And he drove past the point where she said she saw it, and he looked, and they passed the trail, and he saw something further in, disappearing at that point. That's him. Now, where she saw it was disappearing right in behind this tree right here. And she said it was tall. She said it's so thick in there that the size is what really made it stand out. To give you an idea, here's her fiance standing right here. Now, until I pointed that out, how many of you didn't realize it was a man standing there? See how well you blend in? And this thing took off. He's standing right there. But the creature was on the other side of that large tree. And that's all she saw, was it taking off into the trees that way. And she said it was almost twice as tall as her fiance is, and he's 6 feet tall. That was her impression. But he didn't see it at this point. He had to wait till he got a little further on down the road where there's, well, it's basically a walking trail now, but it used to be a logging road at one time. And I guess the creature, when it went off the main road, it went into the trees on an angle because it crossed that trail, and he was able to observe it down the trail and before it disappeared. Well, we were there a week later, and we found some tracks. This first one right here, there had been a cold snap since, and it all refroze. And you can see this bear cap here, right at the bottom of it. Here's the track. Just under 13 inches long. They never saw the tracks, we did. And there was another one. Can you people see that? All right. And the third one. Now, not clear, distinct footprints with nice toes and everything like that, but the fact is they were almost 50 inches long, and they seemed to be walking in a straight, almost, tightrope walk line. Not too far from where they both claim to have seen this thing. Are they tracks? I don't really know, but they could be. Bridal Falls Forest Service Road. Anyone know where Mount Chimney is? Yeah. Bridal Falls. Yeah. 2008 was a very busy year. Got a phone call. Well, I found out about this first case rather roundaboutly. The man and his wife were up Bridal Falls Forest Service Road at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a high viewpoint up there people like to go up to. You can see all the lights of the Fraser Valley down there heading towards, Mission and Abbotsford and stuff like that. In a clear day, you can almost see all the way to Vancouver. Couples go up there to do what couples do. Guys go up there to take off with their gliders and things like that. They were coming down from there at 2 o'clock in the morning. She was fiddling, his wife was fiddling with CDs or something in the passenger seat. And all she remembers is suddenly he grabbed her by the arm and said, "Did you see that guy?" She goes, "No, what are you talking about?" He pulled over. He was sort of stunned. And she started, questioning him. "What did you see? What did you see? What did you see?" He said, "What, was he naked?" I said, "No, he looked there." And she finally said, "Are you saying you saw a Sasquatch?" And his immediate reply is, "No, there's no such thing as a Sasquatch." He wants his name kept confidential, so I'll just call him Norm. His wife was named Bella. And Norm is the kind of man that didn't want anyone around, or any of his neighbors, or any of his friends to know that he saw a Sasquatch. So he told Bella, "Do not tell anybody what happened." But fortunately for me, Bella told her friend, who told another friend, whose husband used to work at the mill I live at, and he knew me and knew what I did. So I got the information, and I called him up. And this was only 24 hours after it happened. And first he said, how the did you find out?" So I had to pay careful politics here, because I didn't want Bella to get in trouble too much. We went and interviewed him. I went to his house to interview him. I went up to where it happened. He told me the whole story. And the most fascinating thing about this man, and this is the kind of witness I love, his attitude is, "I don't know what else it could have been but a Sasquatch. It fit the description of a Sasquatch. But but there's no such thing as a Sasquatch, so it could not have been a Sasquatch. That's his attitude. Because he will not, some people won't even believe their own eyes. That's a fascinating thing about this. They won't even believe their own eyes. It's just unfortunate that his wife was filling with CDs, because this thing crossed the road in like 2 steps. As a matter of fact, right where there, where you see our vehicle, and Bill, no, he's not moving the camera, he's looking at the trail we went through. That's exactly where it happened on this road. You can see where it came up. And there was a trail going straight up the hillside. This is a hill like on a 40-degree angle. I had to climb up sideways, you know. Bill had to climb up sideways holding on the thing, so we didn't tumble. This thing went straight up, across the road, and carried on, plowing through the brush on both sides of the road. There's Bill pointing to the trail where it came out, and there's the trail where it disappeared on the other side of the road. Something plowed through there. I mean, it's amazing thick bush on both sides of this Forest Service road. You know, something plows through it, it leaves a wake. You know, I've seen bear tunnels and stuff where bears go through. This thing plowed right through the whole thing. So either someone or something went through on that spot where he said this occurred. That's Bill pointing to the trail and the tracks. You can see it. Something went through there. Now these 2 reporters from the Chilliwack Press, they heard of the story. They heard about it, so we had to keep their name confidential. So we took them out there to talk about what had happened and the history of the Sasquatch and stuff like that. And they wrote a story in the Chilliwack Press that was entitled, "If You Go Into the Woods Today." Well, this young man saw the story, and he said, "My God, that's the same road I saw something on the following evening." So we called him up, and his name is Ryan, and we did an interview with him. And his sighting was only barely 1 kilometer away from the one I just told you about. But when we interviewed him, we realized he wasn't talking about the following evening. He was talking about just 4.5 hours before, on June the 18th, 2000. This occurred at 10:30, June the 18th, 2008. Midnight rolls around, 2 in the morning. That's when Norman Bella flying. Come down the road and see the same thing. Except he saw it going downhill. Now, 2 sightings of a similar creature, 4 hours apart, barely a kilometer apart, the same Forest Service road. It's a fair argument that they probably saw the same animal. Can't say that with any 100% certainty, but it's a fair bet that they saw the same animal, assuming that they aren't just making it up. Now that's just him. He's standing by this nursing stump. Now what he saw when he came around, it was his headlights illuminated this thing that had its hands up to the stump, took a look at the oncoming car, and he said it was almost comical. It was like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. He said the feet going, and it scrambled up the stump and sort of went over it and down the hill. And he said he had his windows open because it was a hot night, and he could hear it crashing through the brush as it went downhill. Now I gotta tell you, if any man had tried to do what he said this thing did, he probably would have broken a leg or something at least, because that's a steep angle. I don't know what it could have been. He saw if it was not a Sasquatch. As he said, it sort of scrambled right over the stump and disappeared. Now, all it did was leave this gouged scratch marks. You can see them on the side of the stump. So not like no of it going around it. No, it sort of panicked, and you can see the feet going as it sort of went up and over the stump and down in through the brush on the other side. That's Bill Miller, colleague of mine, with the man at. So 2 sightings 4.5 hours apart on the same road within a kilometer of each other. Fair bet that it's 2, we got a sighting here by 2 different witnesses of the same animal, at least in my opinion. Now this fellow, called Mark, September 18, 2008, this man is 6'4". He's out bear hunting 5 kilometers up Ruby Creek Forest Access Service Road. All he remembers is looking over his left shoulder and seeing this boulder spiraling through the air coming at him. Missed him. Splashed in the water in the bog right beside the road, splashing in the water. He looks, he sees this large hair-covered figure disappear deeper into the trees. He has no idea what it was. But the idea of Sasquatch comes to his head later on. We find out about it. He gets contact on the page of Jerry Matthews' site, who contacts Bill Miller, who contacts me. We go out there, we do a search, we do an investigation. I went to his home and interviewed him about the whole incident. Look how thick this area is. This is the road where it happened. This was on the 23rd, just a few days afterwards, same day. It was really thick. Now remember, I was talking to you earlier something about this cut line or this new hydro line going through that park. It's gone right through the middle of this area. Everything you see in these pieces have been flattened out. Yeah. And that's the thick stuff he was going by. This little mark right here, you can't really see it, but there's nothing but water on both sides of the road. It's a big marsh and trees. And this is where he was passing by when something threw, and you can see how thick it is for something to be, for him to notice it moving beyond where the trees are. It must have been pretty immense in size. At first he didn't think it was that big, but when he went in there, and he's 6'4", we couldn't see him at all. So we have no idea. So we decided to do a search in the area. That's where the rock landed. And it smelled terrible in there. It smells, it's awful. It's decaying vegetation, and years of leaves and vegetation rotting on top of each other. It's a swamp, to put it bluntly. Now we went digging for the rock, pulling out this rock. We pulled out this beautiful rock. It's like a cannonball to so round. It's gorgeous. We looked at it. I said, "Is this your rock?" "No, sorry, boys, you got the wrong rock," he says. The thing I got was more elongated, kind of like, and it had ends that tapered down like a football, it was a long rock. "You got the wrong rock." I mean, if he was making it up, he gave him out right there. He said, "Yeah, you found it, beautiful." No, he didn't. He said, "You got the wrong rock. You got to get back in that muck and look some more." We never did find the darn rock. But we did find footprints of about 5 tracks in the area where he said he saw this thing run. I don't know if you can see that there. Here are the toes right along here. And it comes down at an angle like that. Now, I got a better picture up here. There, can you see that? The toe marks? No. Our witness never saw these footprints. We found them. Doing an investigation in the area. He never saw them. He never knew they were there. We found them. You gotta remember, these tracks are in bog debris. They're not in mud, they're not in sand, they're in bog debris. Layers of gunk and garbage and rotting matter. So there were tracks where this man said he saw a Sasquatch, but he never saw the tracks. See, there's close up to the toes. Can you see those toes? Yeah. And they're kind of spread out too, like they were grouping the ground, which kind of makes sense in the kind of terrain this thing was walking through. Well, that's just a picture of me and Bill snapped as I was coming out with the casting we made of it. You can see how thick it was in that area. All that greenery there now is gone because they've leveled it.